This episode is brought to you by Vinitaly International Academy, the toughest Italian wine program. 1,000 candidates have produced 262 Italian wine ambassadors to date. Next courses in Hong Kong, Russia, New York, and Verona. Think you make the cut? Apply now at vinitalyinternational.com.
Welcome to this special Italian wine podcast broadcast. This episode is a recording off Clubhouse, the popular drop-in audio chat. This Clubhouse session was taken from the Wine Business Club and Italian Wine Club. Listen in as wine lovers and experts alike engage in some great conversation on a range of topics in wine. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. And remember to subscribe and rate our show wherever you tune in.
House. Ciao ragazzi. Ciao Giuseppe, ciao Angela.
Ciao Stevie, ciao a tutti.
Mi sentite bene?
Sì, benissimo io.
Okay, because last week we had a little bit of a technical issue here. So I want to welcome everybody to Italian Wine Club. And of course, as you know, we've been doing this for some time now. We have Laika, who is our backstage manager for Clubhouse. Ciao, Laika.
Ciao, Stevie.
So do you want to tell us about what episode is this? How long? Tell us a little bit. We'll do a little bit something different today. Tell us a little bit about the Clubhouse, what we've been doing here so that everyone's on the same page.
Okay, so this is the 26th installment of our Clubhouse Ambassadors Corner. So the concept is when we connect it's our Italian wine ambassador from our Italian wine community to their favorite producer. So in this segment, we have Giuseppe, and Giuseppe LoCascio has chosen Angela Maculan as his favorite Italian wine producer.
Laika, why don't you introduce Giuseppe today?
Okay, so Giuseppe is from New York City, native, and he has spent all his life traveling between Italy and USA, working as a wine importer and also in the wine distribution company industry. So having recently relocated to California, Giuseppe has founded Lucidity Wine Merchants, a boutique fine wine imports or wholesale company, and Vintners, a direct-to-consumer platform where wine lovers can find the best artisanal wines made by the wine growers. So yeah.
Excellent. Ciao, Giuseppe.
Ciao, Stevie, and ciao, Laika. Thank you for having me.
Listen, where are you now? So you moved to California?
I have. We moved in the middle of the pandemic in June 2020, literally, putting all
Why
our
did you
stuff
do
on a
that?
truck.
Are you going through like your midlife crisis? How can you move from New York to California? Those are like two different worlds.
Yeah, but after 20 years in the city with my wife, we were kind of done with the craziness. And trust me, New York during the pandemic wasn't easy. And so my direct family is all in California, so we decided to come closer to my brother and my dad, basically.
Well, congratulations. I only realized that because I saw I think one of the social media feeds that you were hosting the Cavaliere di Tartufo, because I know you're one of the masters, right?
Yes.
So
together with my wife. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's fantastic. I've known Giuseppe for some time now because he's actually participated at our first edition of Vinitaly International Academy. He was kind of like our guinea pig. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun, actually.
Actually, the program has completely changed since. By the way, if any one of the listeners out there, they are either interested in the buyer's program for Vinitaly or Vinitaly International Academy, we are trying to, I don't know if Jacopo's here. I think Jacopo's around. He's our new coordinator for Vinitaly International Academy. We are going to, Nadine, you should do it. We're going to do, I see Nadine, you should do Vinitaly International Academy. I think we will be doing a session sometime in March in New York. Hopefully by next week, I'll have more information about that. So we are crazy enough to think about doing doing something for Vinitaly International Academy in New York in March. So I'll have more information about that. Giuseppe, of course, you've worked for Weinberg for 100 years with your uncle, and you know all the producers in the world, like so many Italian producers. Why did you choose Angela Maculan, as your favorite wine producer to be interviewed today?
Well, it's actually kind of simple because Angela and I are basically the same age. We're just a few months apart. And we literally grew up together in the industry. We've known each other for 20 years.
Oh,
And
that's so sweet.
what I always admired of the Maculan style is that they kind of transcend the appellation. No, they don't really can rely on a famous appellation. So almost 40 years ago, maybe a little longer than that, Fausto had to kind of come up with a method to really make his wines meaningful. And he was one of the very first to actually put the name of the variety on the label, which, if you think about it, Italy in 1976, 1978, they were only drinking red or white. No one really cared about. And so, this kind of purity, this concentration, just focus on the varietal character, for me, it's something that I've always admired. And then, Angela, we bonded right away, and our relationship kind of is beyond work, and we became friends, and we kind of rely on each other, and that's basically it.
So, Giuseppe, let me get this right. First of all, you have several companies, right? Because I'm a little confused. Tell me about your
Yeah.
companies, the importing companies.
Yeah, when I left Weinbo, I wanted to stay in the industry, but things in the US are, as you know very well, very, very challenging. So I figured, okay, let me just try to put all my knowledge and expertise to work at the service of producers that really want to build their brands. And at that time, I knew the system, the entire three-tier system and all of that. And I said to many producers, listen, I think you're probably better off just focusing on few selected markets. Let me manage those markets for you. And basically, I set up GLC Wine, Selezioni Varietali, as a consulting / brokerage. And then,
Okay. So that's the
yeah,
brokerage,
that's
the
the start.
GLC. Mm-hmm.
Correct. And then COVID arrived, and at that time with Barbara, we were actually thinking about like opening a wine bar, wine store in California, which it's one of the states where you can combine those two things.
Mm-hmm.
And then with COVID, we kind of changed our minds. At the same time, I was talking to my dear friend Jacopo Di Teodoro, the owner of Artisanal Cellars in New York, and I said, Jacopo, you know what? Let's go back to what we know best and what we know and what we do best, and let's set up a new company. And in California, you can have 3 licenses bundled all together. So import, wholesale, and retail, online retail. And so in the middle of COVID, we said, let's forget import and wholesale. Let's try our end at direct to consumers. And so we started Vintners. And then with the intention eventually to actually do import and wholesale as well as soon as COVID permitted. And so in May 2021, we started Lucidity. And, I spent all my life in wine import and wholesale. For me, direct to consumer was a whole different thing to learn. Even if I have an MBA and all of that, there was a pretty steep learning curve, but it has been a great experience, I have to say. And so basically, yeah, it's 3 companies. They're connected in a way by me, obviously, but each of them as a separate end user, if you want. And we were talking to 3 different people with those 3 companies.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to all of your new adventures to learn more about that when I see you next. You're such a smart dude. I'm sure you will be successful in whatever you do. But tonight is dedicated to Angela Maculan. So, we're kind of crazy about learning objectives. Tonight, what are we to expect from your call with Angela tonight?
Again, from a wine marketing standpoint, I've always admired the fact that Angela's father, Fausto, was able to distill in the Maculan family name and brand a few very important values that are really transcending the trends. And so what I hope is going to come across from this interview is, number one, the importance of that strategic long-term vision and how to really empower the family to carry on that legacy even through the generations. So those are the things that are really, really relevant in Italy because, as you know very well, I think the vast majority of wineries in Italy are family businesses. And so I think there are a lot of people in Angela's shoes that are either receiving the legacy and are tasked to carry over time all those values and the success of their family business. So that's basically what we hope is going to come across.
Okay, great. So up to you. I'm going to give the mic back to you now, and I'm just going to grab a drink. And my favorite part is just listening. And then I'll come back for in the end if there's some extra time for Q&A. Okay? Ciao ragazzi.
Yeah. Ciao, grazie. Angela, we speak 2 or 3 times a week, more or less. It's great to have you here. If you like, I'll start again right away with the questions. And I think it's important for everyone to have a little bit of a history about the Maculan winery. When did your father start making wine? Can you give us a little bit of that?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here. It's always nice, and it's always a big pleasure to talk a little bit and to explain our philosophy and the history of our winery, since we are known, but not from a very well-known and renowned DOC area. So as you said, we did, my dad at the beginning did something very, very important for the area. So the history of our winery goes back some decades, because actually the winery was founded by my grandfather in 1947. My great-grandfather used to have a little osteria, a little restaurant, and he was making a little bit of wine for the osteria, but at that time, it wasn't the main business of the family. Right after World War II, my grandfather Giovanni decided to build a winery and start making wine in bigger quantities, even if he didn't have any vineyards. So it was just purchasing the grapes and making the wine, very cheap and very low quality in big bottles, 1 liter bottle with the crown cap, and in the big jars, in the big damigiana. My father Fausto was the only son. So he was literally sent to Conegliano to study winemaking, in Conegliano, where the original Prosecco DOCG area is. There's one of the oldest winemaking high school of Italy. And after he graduated, he arrived at the winery He came back to the winery, and he decided he wanted to be different from before. So his official first harvest as a winemaker was 1973. And since then, he hasn't stopped yet making wine. Of course, the first years have been pretty challenging. It was a completely different market. It was a completely different world. It was a completely different wine world. But for my dad, Fausto has always been very, very clear that he wanted to be different from before. So he started using 750 bottles, using natural corks, labels with, as you said, with the name of the variety in the front label, using the name of the vineyard. He started traveling, going around and see what the other wineries were doing at that time. So Friuli, Piemonte, Toscana, France, of course, so both Burgundy and Bordeaux, and bringing back to Braganza anything he could. Technology, winemaking techniques, but the very, very big change arrived when he realized that if you want to make a top quality wine, you should start from a top quality grape. And the best way to have a beautiful grape, is to grow your own vineyards. So he rented vineyards, and then with a little more money, he bought land and planted more modern vineyards. Today we have about 50 hectares, all in the DOC area of Braganza, that we directly manage. And we still purchase about 10-15% of the grapes from farmers of the area that have been working with us for the last 20-25 years, so they know exactly what kind of grapes we want. I don't know if everybody knows where Braganza is. I don't know if that can be included in your question, but Braganza is a small DOC area right in the heart of Veneto. We are about 1 hour from Venice, 1 hour from Verona, on the hills at the footstep of the mountain of the Altopiano di Asiago. So the name of the province is Vicenza, and Braganza is, again, it's about 600 hectares DOC area with only 17 producers. Some are very small, some don't even have distribution outside the area. So this is the situation where we operate every day.
Thank you, Angela. I think it's important also to mention that in the middle of the 70s in Italy, wine consumption was basically connected to the wine for the table. So everyone was really drinking red or white, and they didn't really care about what exactly was in the bottle. This is when some of the classic wines, today they are considered classics, like Tignanello or Sassicaia, they were starting to be noticed. So it's important that to underline the fact that Fausto had that kind of vision already early on. Angela, did Fausto have any mentors? I believe he had a really good relationship with Luigi Veronelli. What kind of influence did Luigi Veronelli have on him?
So Luigi Veronelli was probably changed the life of many wine producers that were starting their career in the 70s and 80s. Because he was, so basically Veronelli was just supporting and cheering for the little producers, very connected to the soil and to the vineyard. He understood that he was probably one of the first that was pushing and he understood that the great wine comes from the soil, from the land, from the vineyard, this is something that today, I mean, we all know that if you want to make a good wine, you have to work hard, a very good managing of the vineyards, reduce the production and all this kind of stuff. But we have to think, as you said, that we were in the 70s, early 80s, with a completely different wine world and wine consumption and style of the wine. So definitely Veronelli was probably one of the very important people that changed my dad's life, but not only my dad's life, also, I mean, many other wine producers that were emerging in the time in the 70s and early 80s. Other than him, my dad has always been a good friend and have good relationship with many other producers. He was also really impressed by Émile Peynaud. My dad went to the first edition of the Vinexpo in Bordeaux in 1981, and he met Émile Peynaud at one of his lectures. And he was really impressed by meeting him and having him tasting the wines and getting suggestion from him on the production of wine. So if I could say these two, maybe not mentors, but definitely very, very important people, and changed the way my dad was viewing the wine and making the wine.
We have mentioned Bordeaux many times. What kind of influence did Bordeaux have on Fausto? And I know that the influence is still present today because you have carried on with your style, keeping it consistent through the years until still today. So what kind of influence did Bordeaux have on the way he wanted to make wine?
So first of all, we have to say that in the area, traditionally, all over the northeast of Italy, if you are not in Verona, where you will find the traditional grape that they use for Valpolicella, all over the northeast of Italy, the main grapes, the red grapes, are Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, a little bit of Cabernet Franc, and there's also some Pinot Nero. So having Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot in the vineyards, and these grapes have been grown here for over 150 years. So this is really what it's traditional for us. Of course, when you start learning how to make wine and you aim to produce a top quality wine, where else can you go? Of course, Bordeaux is the place. So my dad went there, he visited the vineyards, met the producers, met the winemakers, having them tasting our wines and tasting their wines. And of course, if you want to compete with them, or at least being in that, being one of their competitors, you have to learn from the producers that make that kind of top quality wine. So Bordeaux, France in general, because there's of course Burgundy, but Bordeaux mainly has always had a big inspiration for us, always been, and still is. So the vineyards, we have about 12 hectares of high-density vineyards planted with 10,000 vines per hectare because my dad saw them in Bordeaux. So in 1985, he started planting high-density vineyards. We started doing the punching down in the early 90s because they saw that they were doing pigeage using barriques, but the first barrique my dad bought was in 1978. So all these things, are definitely comes from an influence, a French influence for sure.
Which makes sense, as you said, because of the traditional type of grapes that we have, because we have in Braganza. So it really makes sense. If you could pick 3 words that you think have defined Maculan's winemaking since the early days and that they are still valid today, what would you think? What would you say? It defines your style 45 years ago as well as today.
Wow, definitely I can say that our wines are elegant, so elegance, because they are all a good mix between the strength and the fruit, but the elegance and the acidity. Our wines are true to the territory because, again, Cabernet Merlot have been here for so many years, but always with an eye to the world, because we sell our wines all over the world. And then I don't know if that makes sense in English, but our wines are straight. They are true to their characteristic. So if you taste the Cabernet, you can tell it's a Cab. If you taste the Merlot, you can tell it's a Merlot. They're all very, very clean and straight.
I will always remember the very first time I had a Maculan wine. It wasn't one of your reds. It was actually Ascoli Nobili, which is the botrytis affected Vespaiola that you make every now and then. It's a dessert wine, obviously. Mm-hmm. But even then, I didn't know much about wine back then, and I was offered a glass by Leonardo, and he was meeting with your dad in his house in 1987, I believe it was. And I was there, visiting, and I remember the purity of the flavor. And I think that purity of the flavors is one of the many things that really defines Maculan as a producer and as a style. Clean, pure, very transparent, very crystal clear flavor profiles. And that's something I really admire. And the fact that I like to say that I think the way your father Fausto cooks speaks a lot about the way he makes wine. I will never forget, we made spaghetti with aragosta, spaghetti with lobster, and he said, Giuseppe, in life you only need 2 or 3 very simple ingredients and make sure they are combined well, and then everything you do is going to shine. And that was a great teaching that I got from your dad, and I think that applies to your winemaking as well. So listen, let's talk about you, because one of the things we want to talk about is you and your sister Maria Vittoria are the second, actually the 4th generation now. And so you will have to carry on this legacy going forward. So when did you start officially working at the winery?
So, my official first business trip, because I'm in charge of sales and I'm the traveling smile of the winery. My first business trip was to New York, the portfolio tasting organized by Winebo back in 1997. And I was underage, so it was illegal for me being behind the table at that time. But I still remember everything of that trip. I spent 2 days in New York, 2 days in Washington, D.C., and then back to New York for one more day. So I was 19, not even 20 yet, but since then I've never stopped. So I've been traveling again for getting old, almost 25 years now.
We're getting there.
Yes. So that's my main role. I've always traveled about 150 days a year. I'm in charge of the whole sales, so Italy, Europe, and also the rest of the world. So I'm the only one that travels for the winery, and I've been doing since '97. Then I became official. One of the owners of the winery in 2007. And since then, I'm much more involved also in other decisions here at the winery. When I'm home, I taste the wines with my dad and my sister, and I hope I can go back on the road again soon. My sister Maria Vittoria, she's younger than me. She graduated as a winemaker. She has always wanted to be a winemaker since she was a kid, and she graduated in 2007. So since then, she's working side by side with our dad in the winemaking and vineyard managing area of the winery. So it's the two of us and my dad who supervise both of us.
So you kind of split the responsibilities, but when it comes to big decisions, how does it work? How do you guys kind of come together all, in a room and... Tell us a little bit about the process, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that will listen that are in your position. And you and I know that family business is great. And then it's also very, 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 very difficult at one point, because it's all about balance and finding the right alchemy, I think, between all the members. So how did you guys manage this whole generational passage?
So there are two things that I have to say. First of all, it's not, as you said, it's not always easy to balance the personal relationship, so with my sister and with my dad, and the business relationship with my business partners. It's not always easy. When it comes to big decisions, we all get together in a room and we discuss. Of course, if it's from a sales perspective, I will have the last word. If it's a more technical subject, my sister will have the last word, the last decision. But of course, we all discuss together. Then, of course, if it's an everyday decision, we don't need to do big meetings. That's for sure. The other thing I have to say, I really have to thank my dad, because at one point in 2004, he decided to stop traveling. Because from my first trip in '97 all the way through 2004, we were both traveling, not together, but separate. But if you go to, I don't know, let's say to New York, and you have a meeting with this buyer, and then the next time my dad will go, the buyer doesn't have just one person as a reference from the winery. So he decided, okay, I'm not traveling, you will do everything. So I took over of the traveling part, and he didn't come to Vinitaly for 3 years in a row, because he wanted all the buyers, all my importers, all our customers, he wanted that they were talking to me and not just him, because if we are together, everybody wants to talk to him. He's the big guy. So, of course, everybody wants to talk to Fausto and all these things, So for 3 years, he didn't show up at Vinitaly. He, of course, because you know him, he called us like 10 minutes after we left from Braganza. So where are you? How is it going? Is there traffic? So this kind of things, always present, but not physically at the booth at Vinitaly. So of course, people just started talking to me about discounts, about new vintages, and all this kind of business agreement that you have, that you do at Vinitaly. And then when he came back, because of course he can't stay home, so the following year, the fourth year of Vinitaly, he was back at the booth for full time, and the importers were saying, "No, I want to talk to Angela." So that was that was very nice, and I really have to thank my dad for doing this for me and for my career. So that really made a big change for me.
And I think it's not easy to do that as a founder, in a way, to really empower and then, let people do their own thing?
No, it's definitely not easy. Also because my dad has a big personality. But he said, sooner or later, this generation change will happen naturally because that's life. And he said, it would be easier if you go with me being behind you, just to kind of protect and guide you, from the distance. So this was the idea, but definitely was not easy.
I think it's an important thing, and I hope this would inspire more founders to move the same way. Going back to the style, to the winemaking style, what do you think is not the secret, but what are you doing to make sure your style keeps current? Because you know very well we are going through a lot of changes in the industry, but I always know that if I pick a Maculan bottle, I know what I'm going to taste and I know what I'm going to find. So how have you built this style, and how are you going to keep this style consistent? Is it your values as a family?
It's definitely our value as a family, as a winery, as a group, as a working together group. As I said, our wines are clean, are pure, they're true to the variety, to the territory. Of course, the market is changing. The taste of the consumer is changing. So we try to adapt our wines to the taste, but not following the trend because that would be too much, but always maintaining our characteristic and our purity, as you said, because I think purity is the perfect way to describe our wines and also ourselves as persons. What do I mean by adapting or following the market? For example, for Fratta is our top red wine. It's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. We have always used 100% new French oak. Now, in the last few vintages, we reduced the new oak using also second usage oak because the market is going that way. Trying to harvest a little bit earlier to maintain the acidity and the elegance. So we're kind of, following a little bit the market. This is what we do for a living. So this is what the wine is our life. So we still want to express ourselves, our territory, but at the same time, so be true to ourselves, but also at the same time, try to a little bit follow the market, because at the end of the day, you have to sell the wine, right?
Yeah. It's a small adjustment. Without diluting your style, without diluting your identity.
Oh, absolutely. I did a vertical tasting like last week, going back to the 80s with Fratta and both Fratta and the dessert wines. And you can still recognize the style is always the same. The style is the same. Of course, there are a little bit of adjustment because, like, if we take Fratta, I pulled a bottle of Fratta 87. The alcohol was 12.5. The current vintage is 14.5, So there's much more extraction and much more body and bigger and so, but the style, again, the elegance, the acidity, the purity are there. So you can definitely find these things throughout all the production. Either in the red wines or in the dessert wines, as you mentioned before.
And Angela, I'm sure you have heard this question many times, but going from 12% to 14%, which, by the way, we are seeing everywhere. Even here in California, in Napa, I remember I came across some classic Napa wines from the 80s, and they were 12.5. So do you think this is really because of climate change, or have you seen, especially in the last part of the harvest, a bigger influence of the climate over the vineyards?
So there's, of course, the climate changing. It's one of the reasons. I remember when I was a kid, harvest here in the area will never start before school. And in Italy, school starts around September 10. So before it was before the school and then the harvest. Now harvest starts the last week of August or the early days of September. So this really changed a lot. But if we're talking about the wine, it's the combination between the climate changing and the taste of the consumer, the style. Because if you produce a wine now with 12% alcohol, I'm not sure that people will like it. Because of course, we say alcohol because it's something that it's written on the label, so something you can read. But 14% of alcohol is made of so many things, color, fruit, extractions, aroma, structure, complexity. It's not just alcohol. It has to be, everything has to be round and very well balanced.
Yeah. And we share the same taste and we kind of grew up together in this interest, so we totally are on the same page. That being said, one of the trends I wanted to talk to you about is, at least here in the US, there is a growing segment of the younger population that is looking for low alcohol to no alcohol wines. And for me, obviously, it's unthinkable because I do not see alcohol as a drug. I do not see a bottle of wine as a drug, okay? For me, alcohol, as you mentioned, is part of the product, and obviously it needs to be within a range, but it's part of the product. I do not, let's say, I don't have an alcohol problem, obviously, but here in the US, people are trying to eat healthier, drink healthier. So we in the trade are a little concerned about this no alcohol wines because, frankly, I do not see. I think it's lacking something. It's lacking, as you said, roundness. It's lacking balance. But the younger consumers, they don't have the same training or they don't have the same palate that we have. They are actually looking for those kind of products. So one of the questions I have for you is, how are you as a company, as a winery, going to adapt to things like that? Because we will just say, you know what, that's not a segment of the consumer that we will pursue. We're not gonna try to target those consumers. But how is Maculan talking about all these changes, the natural wines, the no alcohol wines, and things like that?
Wow.
Are you guys talking about it? Are you discussing these trends?
Not really. We're talking about organic, that's for sure. Sometimes we discuss about natural wines, but it's not in our style. It's, I have to say, a wine without alcohol for me is not wine.
I agree.
So I'm sorry. It's going to be. I don't know, grape juice. I don't see. I don't know if that's because I'm Italian, and being Italian, I grew up with wine. Not only being born in a winery family, but as Italians, you perfectly know, and I guess so many of the listeners have been to Italy. It's part of our culture. It's I don't know how to explain. It's part of us, of our heritage.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. It's just that here in the US, things can be a little different. And unfortunately,
of
it's
course
not
I
just
know.
wine, Angela. It's gluten-free pasta, gluten-free pizza. To me, they should not be called pizza or pasta. They should be called something else. But if you take away a key component, of a product, then you should call it something else.
So I can agree on the gluten-free if you have a gluten problem. Like if you're celiac, I don't know how you say in English, but
Celiac.
if you cannot eat gluten, that's
that's not the reason, Angela. Most people are thinking gluten-free as like fat-free or light or healthier or things like that. So
I don't know. I don't consider wine alcohol-free wine. I don't see that, I have to say. But again, we'll see. I mean, I don't think we will get to produce a wine without alcohol. But you never know. I mean, it's the market has changed so much, but I don't think I will go that direction soon.
It's also true that fortunately you are very, very well rooted locally in Veneto, especially. How much of your production is actually stays in Veneto?
It's about 1/3. We are very, very strong in the local market. I usually say that out of the 600,000 bottles that we produce, 1/3 is exported, 1/3 is sold in Italy, and 1/3 is sold in Veneto. It's something pretty unusual, I have to say. When I say this to my colleagues, they always stare at me. But we're very, very strong in the local market.
Well, one last question, and then I think we should
Sure.
open it to questions. Before COVID, you have traveled a lot. Have you seen major differences in the way markets react to your wines, or is Maculan always received pretty much the same way from New York to Tokyo to Canada to Brazil and things?
Wow, that's a very difficult question. So I can definitely say that we have a pretty big portfolio. I've talked a lot about the red wines, but we're very, very renowned for the dessert wines. And we produce 4 different dessert wines. About 20% of our production are sweet wines. And we also, of course, have whites. So we have a pretty big portfolio with 20 different wines. It's really different. Every single market is a different market. It really depends on the importer and the trend. I don't know. In the US, we've always sold a lot of Pinot and Toy, which is a Pinot Grigio, Pinot Bianco, and Tokai Friulano blend. A lot of Brentino, which is the Cabernet Merlot, can be considered the entry level. I don't know, let's say UK, they're crazy for our dessert wines. They buy tons of Dindarello and Torcolato, very few of the other wines. So it really depends on the market. One thing that I can say that's worldwide, and Italy too, of course, is that they recognize the passion of the family of all of us that we put in what we do every day, in our wines, because I think that you can taste and feel the passion and the love for what we do when you drink our wines. And again, what we said before, clean, be true to themselves. So they really, I can say that the wines are the perfect mirrors of us as a family, you know. So that's something that people recognize and they admire in our wines.
So can we say that the success of a brand like Maculan over time is the ability to incorporate in the brand name your own style, making small changes if it's needed, but always trying to be true to your own identity? And so there is the personal side of the Maculan family into the wines. Those are wines that are made by people that believe in those products, that believe in doing things in a certain way. And
absolutely. I mean, when you do something like that you love, you are ready to to make small changes, small adjustment, but you still want that your product is still true to yourself and to what you are. And these are our wines. So
yeah,
definitely,
I've
yes.
seen. Unfortunately, many producers every now and then they try to intercept trends, and so every 3 months they come up with something new, and the result is that they dilute their identity, they dilute their values, and at the end of the day, after a few years, no one really knows what that producer is really all about. When it comes to you, I think it's way more clear, it's way more defined. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's the secret of being successful over time.
Yes, I agree. I can see myself and my family and my winery in your words. So yes, definitely yes.
I wanted to also to ask, how are you going to? So hopefully, we will be out of COVID eventually. Are you starting to already plan trips around? I know that you're coming to the US in a month, but what about the other countries?
So I haven't booked my flight yet because I'm still thinking, but yes, I will definitely come. Not really. The situation is still very, very unstable, unfortunately. I've just had the news this morning that they canceled a big tasting in Rome for mid-February. There are rumors that they are postponing Provence. So it's, I don't know, the world is still too much unstable for making plans, long-term plans. By this time of the year, I would usually already had, programmed February, May, September, October, November, everything, but it's not that time yet. I also have to say that I had to kind of reprogram my life,
Yeah.
traveling 150 days a year, from going from there to zero, not even moving outside my town, was not easy at the beginning. I've always tried to, since the very first day, I decided, okay, I want to see also the positive sides of this. And I found a lot, I have to say. The most beautiful thing for me was following day by day. I'm lucky enough to live in the vineyards. So following day by day, the developing and the growing season, it was just amazing. Because, being away for 2 or 3 weeks, you leave home that the buds are already still closed, and then you come home and there you have like the 15 centimeters shoot. But following day by day was just amazing. And then other, I definitely have more time for myself, which sometimes in my previous pre-COVID life, I didn't have much. So I'm really enjoying it. But I'm totally sure that as soon as I will be at the airport or on a plane, I will be back to my life. And I will definitely schedule and also really happy to be back on the road again.
So Angela, one last question.
Because this is what I do.
One other question about the generational passage. So you told us that at one point Fausto kind of gave you the keys of the sales department and say, well, now you're in charge, I will step back and call me if there is an issue. Did he do the same with Maria Vittoria for the production, for the winemaking, or was he a little closer to Maria Vittoria trying to guide her? Because I haven't seen, obviously, as we said, major changes in style. So I guess Maria Vittoria is really following on his steps. But how did that change happen in the production side?
So it was not as drastic as it was for myself. If I'm in New York, my dad is not with me, so I have to decide. Okay, I'm going to present the wine like this, and do this, and say that. With the winemaking is different because it's I don't know. The process takes a little longer. Of course, the vineyard managing and everything. The times of the different actions are longer than a 30-minute appointment with a buyer. And of course, my dad is here at the winery every day, and he follows step by step. Of course, it's not like, okay, I want to do this and you have to do this, because, of course, my sister, it's the same for me. If it's a big decision, it's the two of them that they take the big decision. It's the same. I take with my dad the decision. But in the everyday small little things, we are both on ourselves. So, I can take my own decision. My sister can take their own decisions. But of course, the school, let's call it the school. It's our dad's school, We have our own, the path and the rules. They come from the same. So we are just following.
I wanted to. So there is one. You really don't release many new products very often, Angela, and that's kind of part of the philosophy behind Maculan in being consistent. But you did release a new product some time ago, I think a couple of years ago. made from the Vespaiola grape, which is one of the very few native varieties of the area. And I think it's called Valvolpara. And there is a little bit of skin contact in that wine. How did you come up with that idea, and what was the thought process about making that wine?
So Vespaiola, as you mentioned, is the only really indigenous grape that we have, and that is really unique to Breganze. And it's traditionally used to make torcolato as a dessert wine. So we dry the grapes to make the torcolato. We also make Acini Nobili, which is the one you mentioned that changed your life.
The one really did, actually.
The one with the botrytis. But of course, we also vinify the fresh grape to make the Vespaiolo. So just to explain a little bit about this grape variety, it's a white grape with a very bright acidity. A few years ago, we purchased this property when we found some old vines of Vespaiola. So we had our genetical material, I don't know how to explain, but I mean, reproduced in the greenhouse. So we planted our own clone of Vespaiola. Vespaiola is a white grape. It's a beautiful bouquet, rich, lot of white flowers, white fruits, and in the mouth, the acidity is what it's the main thing. You know, it really explodes in the mouth, but it's not. It doesn't have a big structure. It's not a full body white. So we decided to try to do something different with this, our own clone of Vespaiolo. So we pick the grape, we dry a little bit for just a couple of weeks to have a little more concentration, and then we do 5 days of skin contact. We do this in order to have a bigger body and more structure, and to extract all the beautiful aromas that the Vespaiola has. Because we really believe in this grape, and we would like to not focus, but I mean to have a bigger wine with more longevity and more structure. Because Vespaiolo here is a very easy drinking, refreshing, which is amazing. But we also wanted to challenge ourselves in a more complex Vespaiolo. And that's the Valvolpara. Valvolpara is the name of the vineyard, as many of the name of our wines comes from the original vineyard where the grape is from. It's a small production. It's only not even 1,000 bottles, but it's something that we believe this way of making the Vespaiola can really age for many years.
I think it's a great example of what we just said about, making small adjustments, small new things without really losing your identity and keeping consistency in your values. That's great.
Absolutely.
Stevie, I'm pretty much done with the questions. Angela and I can talk for hours, so we can.
Okay, then hold on one second. There you go. That was
Thank you.
Because I'm sure they'll be clapping, the audience, but you can't hear them. So we do a little cheering for our speakers. That was wonderful. Thank you very much. I know the traveling bit I can completely relate with you, Angela. I don't know how much. Giuseppe, have you been traveling a lot?
No, not at all. I was supposed to be.
Right?
Very, very little. Very, very little.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be in Las Vegas last week, and I canceled. I did it over Zoom. But next week, we will have the Slow Wine in San Francisco, and I will have 5 producers. I have 5 tables. No one is coming from Italy, obviously. And then I will fly to Seattle on Tuesday. Yeah, but it's very. I'm not gonna do long flights until April. So I'll be.
But you'll be coming to Vinitaly, I hope.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much for that. I just want to remind, we are out of time right now, but before closing, I want to remind everyone that next week we will be back with Rob Mella and Diego Corradi, again, Veneto next week. The week after that, we have Marsha Ham from Canada with Lorenzo Marotti Campi. And 10th of February, we have Stefan Metzner with Clemens Lageda. And then on the 17th, we have Julianne Farricker with Amanda Courtney. And the 24th of February, actually it's my birthday, Ashley Howell with Pierluca Proietti of Abbianova. So we are, and it goes on and on, the entire schedule. Leica's doing a great job scheduling all of you here. And remember, please remember that all of our conversation will be replayed on the Italian Wine podcast. Last week I was saying, like, you know, it's very exciting because we had more than 1 million listens last year, which is very, very significant, obviously mostly from the Anglophiles. But we are getting some traction with the Italian audience as well. So we're very excited about that. And we will be doubling down with our podcasts in 2022. So hoping to see some of you at Vinitaly if you can. If any of you would like to participate in the Buyers Program, please reach out to our team. And then we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Ciao ragazzi.
Grazie Stevie. Thank you.
Grazie
Ciao,
mille.
Angela.
Ciao. See you at Vinitaly and Opera Wine.
Yes,
Ciao.
absolutely.
Bye bye.
See you, Verona.
Bye-bye.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.
Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.